Movie, just give me turtle shapes, and I'll be happy. So I recently reviewed the Admiral. It was the first film in what they're now calling the Yin Sun-sin trilogy. And overall, I just thought it was a great film. It had great production, great action, acting. Overall, just very entertaining. And now I've seen the second installment. Once again, directed by Kim Han-min. And this is actually a prequel to the first film. It's titled Hansan Rising Dragon. And right away, once again, I just found the production level to be top notch. And it's actually superior to the first film. Of course, this is coming out 8 years after that, so technology is a little better. And I'm not really sure why it took them this long to make this next film. I know the first film did do very well, it was also just a big critical success. And Korea now is just really producing some of the best historical epics in the game. In fact, they're really the only ones. I'm not sure why Hollywood kind of stopped. But really, we should go back to just making big ones like this at least every year. So the Admiral Roaring Currents focused on the struggle of Yin Sun-sin. It depicted his struggle against overwhelming odds with the Battle of Myeongyang. And it did a great job at humanizing this legendary hero. And it also made for a really compelling story. Hansan Rising Dragon is set during, of course, the Battle of Hansan. This took place 5 years before the battle in the first film. And because of the fact that it's a prequel, we get a different actor playing the Admiral. And this is unfortunate because I really liked Choi Min-sik. He's one of Korea's greatest actors. Just one of the greatest actors anywhere. But now playing the role we have the actor Park Hae-il. And he's a good actor too. He is in some great films. Memories of Murder, The Host, and just a bunch of other Korean films. And I thought he had the look down of Yin Sun-sin, but his acting was a little too wooden, I felt. Especially just compared to Choi. But it does work in a way because he's playing this historical legend. And that is sort of his character, he's just very stoic. And we'll see in the film after this that his character is yet again played by a different actor. So it is a shame that Choi never comes back. And when I was watching this, I did notice that this film has a lot of exposition text about history. So it definitely does a better job than the first film at just letting you know the history and what's going on. That was sort of a flaw in the previous film. Then again, it was geared towards South Korean audiences who know the history. But now it seems like it's targeting a wider audience, so that's good. And there's a lot of setting up in the first half of this film, so just be prepared for that before you watch it. And a lot of the scenes just involve the characters just planning for the battle that's going to take place. And it does do a good job of just keeping you interested even if you're not the biggest battle strategy buff. It's just a very fascinating time period, so that sort of just helps to keep your interest. And I'll say the main antagonist in this definitely has a bigger motive this time around. And he's also just more of a character this time. In the first film, a lot of people felt that the antagonist was just a villain and there wasn't really much to his character. And I did get a good laugh at how the Japanese invaders were portrayed in that movie as sort of these over-the-top, heartless maniacs. Also, the Japanese armor was sort of exaggerated to make it look more menacing. And there's still some of that in this film, but it's definitely toned down. But someone else made an interesting point that the Japanese really were that brutal. So just making them look like heartless maniacs, that's not really too far from the truth. It was just part of the time. That's how people acted. And, you have to keep in mind during war, it just brings out the most evil in people. But really, just the epic naval battle at the end of this is really what this film is all about. And they did such a good job with it, and I would love to have seen this in an IMAX. It's really impossible to watch the battle scene without getting just a certain level of excitement, and it definitely got me pumped, especially when I saw the turtle ships. Like I said in the beginning of this film, just give me turtle ships and I'm good. It's like waiting for Godzilla to pop up in one of his movies. But with that said, if you want pure entertainment, then, just go ahead and watch this. All three films are pretty easy to find now, they're widely available. Sure, you could find some free streams of this online somewhere. But I think I do still prefer the first film to this one. And that's mainly just because of Choi Min-sik. Also, the pacing was a little bit better in that one. Again, this one takes a while to set up. But the production level in this film is better. And I believe too the battle scene is done better. It looks amazing. And it's overall just pure spectacle. It's very engaging. And, that's okay. Some people watch films for that. But if you really want historical accuracy, then that's sort of where this film fails. And I do recommend reading the history after watching this film, because it will just spoil it. It'll take all the excitement from this film. And for me to talk about that, I'm gonna have to get into some spoilers, so just giving you a heads up. So, the film at least begins pretty close to actual history. I did enjoy some of the quick retellings of some of the important historical events in the film and just the battles leading up to where we are. I also enjoyed the attention given to the Battle of Yongin, which establishes Wakisaka as being a really dangerous antagonist. I also like the mention of how the Joseon king abandoned Pyongyang, and even how he was thinking about submitting to the Ming dynasty in exchange for personal protection. Some nice little details there. But as the story went on, creative liberties pretty much took over, and it really gets away from the actual history. And a few fictional storylines are fine, but there's some straight up nonsense that I have to point out, like Wakisaka attacking his fellow daimyo, and then just stealing their fleets and putting them at sword point. That was definitely a bit much. But the main problem is that the director really picked a difficult battle to adapt to film. And it's because he picked the Battle of Hansan Islands. This is where the Koreans pretty much smoked the samurai without much trouble. And there really wasn't anything interesting to tell. Historically, the battle was between 56 Joseon ships against 73 Japanese ships. And really, due to the superior ship design and heavier weapons, the Joseon Navy had a massive advantage over the Japanese Navy. And the resulting battle could be summed up pretty simply. Basically, Yin Sun-sin made his fleet into this crane wing formation, and it worked. And then he won the battle. End of the story, really. And obviously a story like that isn't going to work too well in a film. So the director had to really fictitiously beef up the samurai navy. And he came up with them having a mighty iron warship to counter Yi's turtle ships. And I'll admit, it does look pretty exciting on film. But by doing this, he created some problems for the plot. And in a way, it makes the antagonists an underdog. So we almost want to root for the villain. And it's because we really see him overcome challenge after challenge that's being given to him by the main protagonists. And it could be entertaining, but it really just ends up flipping the narrative. We shouldn't be rooting for the bad guy. And again, it's not historically accurate. So there's a problem where we have a really dangerous antagonist now, yet it also does have to remain somewhat historically accurate. Yi still has to win by using his crane wing formation. They're not going to change that. So the director sort of wrote himself into a corner. So the plans he comes up with is just having the antagonist do something dumb at the last minute. And that's just lazy writing. And the film also has to nerf the turtle ships, and they do that by having the villain steal the blueprint and finding out the weakness. And this is all beginning to sound a lot like Star Wars.
To penetrate the outer defense.
So the whole movie Yin Sun-sin is doubting using these turtle ships. And it's all really to surprise the audience with this grand reveal of a new and improved super turtle ship. And you know, the concept of preparing a secret weapon of your own to counter the enemy, it's not half bad. But the problem is that Yin Sun-sin was not a shipbuilder, so he could really only point out the problem and not solve it himself. So the role of advancing arguably the most important plot in the entire film falls on the shoulders of a very minor character, someone with hardly any lines of dialogue, and zero participation from the main protagonist that we're all supposed to be rooting for, and he's also supposed to be this heroic genius. So this subplot really ends up being the weakest part of the film, but it should really be the strongest. And as if that wasn't enough, the subplot itself is then resolved off-screen. All of a sudden he has this brand new super turtle ship, and we see him charging into battle, saving the day. And the audience is never told anything. There's not even a construction montage. I will say, that is a missed opportunity not having a construction montage. That would have been awesome. Anyway, I didn't mean to nitpick everything. You know, of course movies aren't going to be 100% historically accurate, but I just wanted to point out some of the problems that the director was put in just because this is based on history. In the end, I'll still say he did a really good job at just giving us a very entertaining and compelling summer blockbuster type of film. And most importantly, I look forward to the next installment. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you want to help support what I do, I have a Patreon. And if you want to just discuss films like this, I have a free Discord. Everything's in the description box below. And like always, thanks for watching.